All right, I think we're good to go. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Again, you do not need a webcam or a microphone. It's just going to be us giving the presentation today. There is a chat function and a Q&A function as well with the Zoom meeting. Just to let you guys know, we'll be answering all questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions that you want to ask during it, feel free, but just know that we won't be answering those until the end. So I think we're good to get started here, and I'm going to send it over to Garrett. He's going to be the main one giving the presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So we can go ahead and get started here. Yeah, super excited to be chatting with everybody about some of our upcoming enhancements to our lower tier functionality. This release is a little bit, and webinar is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So this feature is actually not yet live, so you wouldn't be able to log into Flashtract and see this today, but April 13th is when we're hoping to push this out. So a little bit different, but wanted to give you guys sort of the first look as to, what's coming into the app and what to expect with some of these enhancements. So that being said, specifically, what's going out in this release is being able to track lower tier payments for all lower tiers and have your subcontractors enter those amounts. And then we can actually then leverage that data to generate, common documents that all of you guys tend to collect manually today from the subs, whether that be a supplier list, a sworn statement, affidavit. We can support all of those things now. So super excited. So I'll kind of spin through the deck pretty quickly here, and then I would like to spend kind of most of our time in the demo portion and doing Q&A, but just covering the agenda really quickly. So I'm going to go over some of the lower tier challenges that at least we've heard from a lot of you guys. And that just kind of speaks to why we're investing so much in solving this problem. And then I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of tracking lower tiers in Flashtract, do a quick feature overview, then we'll jump into a quick process flow, and then from there we will actually get into the app and see the demonstration. So when it comes to lower tier challenges, I feel like I'm definitely kind of speaking to the choir here. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to tracking lower tiers. These are only 3 specific bullet points that I have on this deck, but as I've had conversations with a lot of you guys, it's a very hectic and manual process to try and, number one, collect waivers and get lower tier information from your subcontractors, because I don't think they maybe see it as a big enough priority for them to provide it to y'all in a timely manner. And then when you do finally get everything collected from your subs, then comes in the tracking portion and making sure that you've logged that you've collected the proper waivers and logged which suppliers are being paid for which month, and ultimately it's a lot of time and effort spent going back and forth with the subcontractors. So again, this is a very high level list of challenges, and I think y'all know better than anybody how difficult it is to track lower tiers today out in the real world. So the benefits of starting to track lower tier information inside of Flashtract, a lot of it does sort of speak to taking something that's very decentralized and manual and moving it all into one system, and then being able to leverage the different capabilities of Flashtract, like document generation, blocking invoicing, to more efficiently track and collect all of the lower tier information. So one thing I did want to call out specifically here on this slide is, I mentioned beginning to enforce lower tier lien waiver collection, at some point being able to generate lower tier lien waivers and have those signed directly by maybe the suppliers, and then additional reporting. This is more so us just trying to articulate the grand vision to you guys. And these 3 things aren't going out in this release, but the top 2 bullet points will be live next week. And those two things enable us to continue to invest in lower tier and hopefully end up with a feature that over time is, very robust and can support everybody's use cases. So again, just quickly touching on, a bit of a feature overview and what's going to be new with this release. So we do have an updated interface that we're releasing for the lower tiers page. Heard a lot of feedback that everybody tends to be a little bit more comfortable with tables and lists. So we're migrating our lower tiers page to be a list view instead of those cards. We're keeping the lower tier lien waiver repository relatively similar to how it was before. So your subcontractors or you can come in and upload those waivers against a specific pay period. But some of the new stuff is each time the subcontractor submits their bill, they are given the opportunity to enter their estimated payment amount for that month. And then that data starts to feed into typical documents like a sworn statement, maybe an affidavit. Some supplier lists that I've seen have like an estimated payment this period column, some don't. But either way, through this update, we'll be able to generate those documents for your subcontractors instead of having that be an uncontrolled requirement that you set up that they have to then download, fill it out manually, and then re-upload. So what does that process actually look like? I spoke to it a little bit, but in a nutshell, the subcontractor would still log into Flashtract like they do today, enter their billing amounts, and then as soon as they've done that and they've continued to the next step, we will prompt them to enter their estimated payment amounts for all of the lower tiers in the lower tier list. At that point, they would move on to their review and sign documents phase of the invoice submission process, in which case we will be, if you guys want, generating the sworn statement and supplier list for them. And all they have to do is e-sign that document, submit their pay app, and then at that point, everything operates like normal, except as you're reviewing the pay app that was submitted, you now have a generated sworn statement or supplier list. So there's a little bit more data integrity there. And then also greater and I guess more specific insight into how much the lower tiers are expected to get paid for that month so that, moving forward, you can be sure to collect whatever waivers your company collects for those payment amounts. So that's my little, I guess, monologue here. So definitely excited to actually jump into the product and give you guys a demo. So let me go ahead and do that. So just again, going to reiterate that a lot of this stuff, or all of it actually, is not yet live. So you can't log into Flashtract and see this just yet. We are going to be releasing everything that I'm showing you on the 13th of April, so next week. But that being said, so I'm currently logged in as a general contractor, and here I can see I have 2 projects on my dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and click into the April 5th webinar project, and like normal, that's going to load all of my contracts. And here I can see that I have Atlanta Concrete as the vendor on my concrete subcontract. And then at this point, I've just sent out the invitation to, Atlanta Concrete. So they haven't filled out the SOV yet or anything like that. But the first thing that I want to call out as an update to this screen here is we've added more information to the lower tiers tile to give you guys a better high-level overview of when new lower tier related items are added into Flashtract by your subs. So let's say, for example, and we'll see this later in the demo, but let's say a subcontractor has added, a new lower tier or submitted a new document against a lower tier this month. These numerical values would then represent that. So you could easily see when new things get added. And then down here, we've also added the total number of lower tiers that exist within the button. So I'm gonna go ahead and click inside of our lower tiers page. And the first thing that I will show from here is, let's pretend like you've received maybe like a notice of furnishing or a notice to contractor from a supplier on the job site, and you want to go ahead and add that lower tier into the list here, you can do that the same way that you could with the old system, but you'll probably notice that we now have several more fields that you can add in for each lower tier. So let's say this is a concrete material supplier. I can actually specify that this is a supplier, and if your company has that information in a document, we can then feed that into the document. We can provide a description of work. So this is totally arbitrary, but 400 pounds concrete. We can give it an optional contract value. So we'll do 25,000. Paid to date, we can leave as 0. If there are any lower tier vendors where you know how much has been paid, you can always come back in and change that if you need to once this is released. But since this is a new one, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. And lastly, we'll fill out the first and last name and go ahead and get it created here. So go ahead and add it. So this is sort of the first glimpse into the new layout. So again, if y'all log into Flashtract, you would see the old kind of card view here, but we've transitioned this over to a table so that it's really easy to skim and kind of read through the list of lower tiers and get a high level overview on where each one stands. So moving left to right, we have our name. The waivers column is going to give you access to any of the lower tier waivers that you or your sub has provided. This number will show the total number of waivers that exist for this lower tier. Notice of furnishing, I'm going to go ahead and upload this document because I received it. Go ahead and drag this in here. And at any point, you can view the notice. We have our full screen document viewer here so that it's really easy to read. And if you need to remove it, you can always do so. But from the table view, you have a really good idea of who you've received notices for and who you haven't. And then we have our description of work, total contract value, and paid to date. So that's kind of the glimpse from the GC side. So let me go ahead and bounce over to the subcontractor account and show y'all what it looks like to submit a bill and generate that sworn statement and upload some lien waivers. So we'll go ahead and get signed in here. Alrighty, so logging in as the sub, I will see that webinar project on my dashboard here. And again, like I said, this is a new invitation, so I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And for the sake of simplicity, I will add in one line item here. And then I'll go ahead and move forward with submitting my invoice. So we'll go ahead and add in a percentage. Let's just say 25. And then we'll be able to save the schedule of values. And now that we save it, we have our typical message that pops up where it says, Smith's Contracting has required that you report all lower tiers. I click continue, and then this brings me to a new step in the bill submission process that lets me report any estimated payment amounts for these lower tiers for this period. So let's say I'm anticipating that I'm paying my concrete supplier, I don't know, $2,000 for this period. I can type in that value. Let's say that I have some lien waivers that I need to provide. In most cases, it would be for previous months, but since this is a new project, I'm going to go ahead and just do the month of April and drag and drop this guy in here and add it in. So that lien waiver is now associated with the April period. And one thing that I do want to call out before submitting this bill is we are also in the process of creating very robust how-to tutorials for your subcontractors to walk them through the process of uploading waivers and filling out these payment amounts so that it's super clear to them what they need to do. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and submit. And also you'll notice that up until this point, this value has not rolled into paid to date just yet. go ahead and review, get one final warning here as the subcontractor, making sure that everything is up to date. And this is sort of where I guess the magic happens, so to speak. So what we have here on the screen is the Flashtract default sworn statement. So this is a document that will be available to everybody, all Flashtract customers. And basically, it's a fairly typical sworn statement with what you would expect from a legal language standpoint. And then down here, we have our table of subcontractors and suppliers, and then all of the payment information is automatically getting populated in this table. And the sub has the ability to electronically sign this. And this is something that could be generated every submission. And from my perspective, it would give you guys a really good mechanism of ensuring that these lists of lower tiers are accurate, because either way, the sub is going to have to submit this document. They have to e-sign it, so it gives them a little bit more accountability around making sure all of this information is up to date. So I'm going to go ahead and sign it. And of course, here we have our standard pay app, Georgia lien waiver, and then we can go ahead and submit. So go ahead and do that. And at this point, I'll go ahead and log back in as the general contractor and kind of talk through what it might look like to review all of this information. So go ahead and get that logged in here. So at this point, the process of reviewing everything would be very similar to how it works today. You would see the pending approval tag on the project. As soon as the contract loads, you'll see the dollar amount. And then from here, at first glance, you have, some data down here that shows that something has changed related to the lower tiers. So we've got number of documents added this month. We've got number of lower tiers, and then the total number of lower tiers. And then over here, we have our nicely generated sworn statement that we can take a look at. And then if we click into our lower tiers page, we can see that we now have one waiver that's sitting under the concrete material supplier. And we can view that waiver, we can download it, we can leave it as is. All of the document functionality today is basically the same as it was before. And the goal moving forward is to invest more time into the waiver collection piece. But again, everything is the same. I know something that's come up quite a bit in my conversations is making sure that there's an easy way to view all waivers for lower tier, a specific lower tier, instead of having to click a specific period. So we did build this toggle in here, and this is a very bad example, but if you click this toggle, it will show every single waiver that's been uploaded for this lower tier and then what period it's associated to. So at this point in time, if I go ahead and approve the pay app, then I can see that some of the, I guess I have to refresh. I am still on a testing environment, unfortunately, so there might be a couple small bugs, but at this point, I can see that the values are automatically rolling. So next time your subcontractor comes in, they don't have to manually, adjust the paid to date value unless they need to. Flashtract is doing that roll for them, which sort of brings up kind of the last topic that I wanted to quickly touch on, which was, what happens if a subcontractor inputs a paid to date value and then ultimately pays something else. We did build edit capability into the system so that for every payment that was entered, you or the subcontractor have the ability to go in and adjust it after the fact. So let's say, I thought I was going to pay my concrete material supplier $2,000, but ultimately it was only $1,000. You or the sub could come in, they could adjust the amount, click save, and that way moving forward, all of those sworn statements and supplier lists are accurate and have the correct values. So that's kind of the gist. Again, excited to kind of get this into into all of y'all's hands and get, the feedback after y'all have had the chance to use it. But just reiterating one more time that, as a business, we are investing a lot in our lower tier capabilities. So don't expect this to be the last update. We're focusing a lot of time and energy on lien waiver collection and reporting and document generation. So we hope that over the next 6 months to a year that this becomes a system that's incredibly robust and configurable and would fit everybody's needs. So yeah, that's sort of the end of the demonstration. And I guess at this point, Matt, maybe we can take some Q&A. And I still can't find the chat, so you may have to help me out here a little bit.
Yep. So Tara just asked if the subcontractor has no second tier vendors or no payments to report, what does the GC see?
Yep. So if they don't have any, currently what would happen is it would be, so Tara, if you wanted to generate the Creative Structures supplier list, they would still generate that. And then, we could maybe do some customization in the document that says none or NA. But in the next version, and this is something you asked about specifically, Tara, we hope to have some sort of mechanism where the subcontractor can explicitly say, I'm only a labor sub, or I'm pulling from a pre-bought store of materials. And for those subcontractors, the system wouldn't necessarily, that would kind of be that indication. But for this version, the best thing that I guess I can think of would be the generation of that empty supplier list with the electronic signature from the sub. Anything else rolling in, Matt?
Nothing yet, but we'll give them a couple more minutes here in case there's any other questions. And if you don't know how to ask a question, if you highlight over the screen on the bottom, there should be a either Q&A button or the chat button that you can click on. That'll open up a box that you can ask that question in.
Alrighty. And obviously, I would assume most everybody on the call has my email and Matt's email. So if you guys think of any questions after the webinar or, after we've actually released the feature, we would love to hear any and all feedback. And that's really how we build this stuff to the best. Got another one coming in. I feel like I see it.
So Tara's got one. You got it?
Let's see here. Tara said, sorry, LOL.
But before that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, here we go. If the sub has entered a second tier supplier on a previous billing, so Tara, that is the next phase that we are actively working on right now. So we are building a rules system that will allow your team to set up lower tier specific document rules that say, I need to collect this thing, and here's how I need to collect it, and here's a template of that document, and I want it to block invoicing and all of these different configurations and conditions. So to answer your question immediately, the waiver system will still operate how it does today for now, but the intent is that once we release the next version, yes, you can set it up so that if the sub enters a payment amount, then in 30 days or with the next invoice or with 60 days or whatever you want, you can actually require that waiver be uploaded into Flashtract.
Awesome. Smiley face from Tara.
Good question, though.
And you guys can still ask questions, but I also did want to point out, if you have any supplier lists or sworn statements or affidavits that require that lower tier info, and you want that to be either updated if it already exists as a requirement in the system, or added, if you just send an email to docs@flashtract.com. I'm sure you all are aware of that email. We can go ahead and start working to get those added for you so that your subs can start using those once this goes live.
Yep, thanks for that, Matt. And I definitely wanted to bring that up. And just one additional note on that. you know, once this is live, and if you hadn't had the chance to work with us on the documents, nothing's going to break for your subs. They'll still go through the same workflow. So no issues there. But yeah, definitely excited to get as many of these documents generated instead of uploaded as possible, and hopefully make it easier on your subs and ultimately easier on y'all to review them. So very excited. Well, I guess we can call it, Matt. Looks like we're not getting any more questions. So
sounds good. Thanks everyone for coming. There will be a recording of this that will be sent out. Our marketing team will go through and edit it and clean it up and everything. But you should see that. If you don't see it, feel free to reach out to us and we can make sure that you guys can get a copy of that. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about this in the meantime, you can feel free to email Skylar, myself, or Garrett, and we'd be happy to talk with you guys.